I guess it's a very complex term, no? But I guess any city that takes special care of its urban food systems and tries to make them more sustainable and tries to integrate new solutions and go in that direction would be considered an edible city, or at least in the process of becoming one.
I think it's in the language because Rotterdam is very stony. But if we say it's an edible city and look at it as an edible city and find the edible parts or project in the city, then we can say it's an edible city. But other people don't think it's an edible city. And what's the definition of edible? We discussed it in the past. Are you an edible project or initiative if you grow basil in your kitchen? Or does it need a plot of land? Or what is the definition of edible when you grow mushrooms in a cellar? And it's so wide, what you think about being edible. We have one initiative and says we grow plants for the soil system, and that's also edible because insects and butterflies and birds need food too, and that's important when you want to grow fruit trees to have this healthy system.
For me, edible city, it's such cities adapted according to the situation or the weather, the condition, the topography of that area, and the cities offer some employee and work in for the citizen for that city according to the like by using the open spaces for green open spaces which offer some jobs for citizens in that cities, and we can be autonomous as cities. I think this is my definitions to the edible cities. So cities in Tunisia, edible cities in Tunisia will be different than other cities in Morocco or Berlin, or it's something which it's something, it depends on the many conditions of that area and that place. So it will be specific for each area and each conditions and the socio-economic conditions and maybe topographic and weather condition also for that region.
Achieving food autonomy is something utopistic or something that we can realistically think about? What do you think about that?
Yeah, autonomy, it's maybe we can start by 10%, then we will increase that percentage to be 20%. Just it will be the progress for autonomy. It will be not in just one day or 2 days. It's a vision, and it will be a hard work to achieve that objectives and that point of the vision of the cities. But it can be really realistic if all the les parties prenantes, les stakeholders, the stakeholders just put hand in hand and work hard to have edible cities. So it can be realistic with the effort of everybody and all stakeholders and the intervenant to achieve that objective.
Well, it should be part of the sustainability process in cities, because as we get more urbanized, we have to find other options to produce food. And at the moment, also the production of energy plants for cheap energy is I mean, I'm coming from a rural area here in southern Germany, and for the farmers is much more lucrative to invest in energy plants. So there is less food production on the countryside. Same thing for biodiversity. Biodiversity is decreasing rapidly, and in the cities there is more biodiversity. So I think to make cities sustainable, and as we grow as urbanized society, we have to find ways to create food in the cities, or to grow food in cities. But at the moment, it's still very expensive. I think our governments have to be convinced that they have to create more funding and create more opportunities to actually establish these systems that we know of, like urban farming on roofs or on facades, or indoor urban farming. It is very expensive so far. But we've got a few good examples where restaurants provide their own salads and veggies from the roofs. So I think it's the right direction, but we have to convince politicians.
I think like full autonomy is very difficult and quite a topic, especially when we talk about staple crops, just because they need very big area for production, like wheat, rice, and all these things. And also, it also really depends, as Sbei very well said, like edible cities are very dependent on their specific context. And therefore, in this case as well, it depends on population density, because we have a very dense city where there's not enough area and a lot of people living, then achieving autonomy there is much harder than achieving it in a very spread out city like Berlin, where we have lots of green area that could potentially be used for crop production. So yeah, I think we can definitely work towards it, and we should work towards it, but achieving it fully, I think it's, at least at the moment, quite a topic. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, because also like producing food in the city makes us realize how important it is, how hard it is to produce it, and we will respect more what is produced on the countryside as well. So not being able to achieve full autonomy doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive for it, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't have other benefits, because it does.
Yeah, I think when it's not that urgent, it's not realistic. When it should be very urgent to have food production from your own area, and people start to be creative with it. And we have in Rotterdam, we have lots of gardens behind the houses where not only high buildings are, but most of the gardens are full of stones. And the same with allotment communities. They make gardens full of flowers and terraces, and when you use it as for food production for your own family or your neighborhood, there's a lot possible. But people need to see the drive and urgency to invest in it.
Just I want to confirm for the population, for us, the Tunisian people are not familiar with the edible cities concept. So that's just I want to confirm what Caroline are saying for population. Really, maybe because we are just city followers, but when we talk about city food production in cities, so it's something for them, it's new, really something new. So when we are working, we are working for the psychology, for the terminology, for to make them understand what's that and what is this and how can we do it. So just to say, they are not familiar with this new concept for Tunisian people.
And how is that culturally in Tunisia? Like, do people grow herbs on their balcony, or in their neighborhoods? Is there a possibility to grow food?
In the rural area, so it's okay because it's agricultural areas. So people have their own land, so they grow like a cereal, olive, fruit trees, or something like that. But in the urban and Grand Tunis, Tunis and the cities in the around. So here, not all people have the opportunity to grow and to have the food in their house. First of all, because the house is not very big, and most of houses it's just apartment without a garden, without and also people here they are not familiar with the concept. So there are like the botanists, the people that are studying agronomy, that's it's a little bit of category of people where they have a garden, or they try to have spaces for to make spaces, to arrange spaces for crop and crop production, like legume or aromatic plants, something like that. But it's not usual. Not all people have this opportunity and also the mentality to do it.
I think it's really important to present local examples. Like if you do something, and I don't know who could get started if people are from their culture not so familiar with that concept. But I think it would be really great, and just for small communities to just create local examples. I've dealt with guerrilla gardening about 10 years ago and did a presentation on that topic, and it was the same. Like people just started in New York and in London, in the big cities. They started, it was illegal, but in the end now it's accepted by politics and administration that it's urban gardening, and it's beneficial, and it doesn't harm anyone. But that was a sort of a process of just doing it, and there were lots of people just following the first people in New York, and just it spread all over the world. So now it's accepted in our society, but it has to start with local examples.
I think it's very important to be connected with local food. And my own example is that 12 years ago, a housing corporation started a pilot in a poor neighborhood, a pilot that people could grow their own food in the areas between the flats, the green areas. And it was really a success. In no time, we had 50 small gardens, and families and our neighbors had food from their own garden, and herbs and fruits, and it was a great opportunity. That it was a project from a housing corporation, not my bottom-up initiative. And in the meantime, lots of bottom-up initiatives started, and we have, well, some of you have been there, the urban farmer Marlin at Natuurtalent, who has her plot, and like I think 120 families harvest their own crops, their own vegetables. And now, as an example, more people see that and looking for land to start a market garden also. I think it's important that part of our diet comes from local food and how cool it is when you can go by bike there or walking and harvest it yourself or with your children. Because when we let the big industry grow our food, we don't anymore what we eat, and we will lose the connection with food and with healthy food, and also the joy of growing food and cook it yourself.
I just want to add exactly, this happened to me as well, because when I moved to Germany, I lost the connection to food. I'm coming from Hungary. We have like a lot of markets. Like Hungary is, we have markets everywhere, and like old people are going there and selling their harvest, and it's beautiful, and where the food is coming from. And when I moved to Germany, I realized that like our food was coming from the supermarket. It's like wrapped, and it's like not only from the supermarket, but from Italy, from Spain, from really questionable working conditions. And then I started to go to the bio market, but I just realized I couldn't afford it. It was like buying bio groceries. It's very important to me, but it's like very expensive as well. And then I had the chance to get a allotment garden here in our neighborhood, and I started to grow my own food. And I also had to realize like why bio food is so expensive, because it's not easy to grow food at all. But it's somehow nice that you have your own salad and apples, and it makes such a difference. Yes. This is my story.
I just want to tell, I've always had grown my veggies and herbs on the smallest of balconies. I've lived in cities most of the time. Now I'm on the countryside, but I've always had pots in stacks, and I've always had wild bees in my small balconies, and I've always had birds. So if you look what and how you are actually growing, there's space for so much more, and and you have the advantage of increasing biodiversity as well. So it's and this is what I'm trying to get through to people, that even if you have little space, I mean, the last balcony I've had was 1 square meter. That was tiny. But I've had 3 types of wild bees. They're coming and on a regular basis, and birds as well. So it is possible in the smallest space. And I think that's what people also, that's what we have to teach people. You don't need to have huge balconies or huge gardens. You can do it on tiny spaces, and grow at least part of your food, and provide food for animals as well.
I also have a garden, you know that. Yeah, I second that, and it's very hard to grow food in the city or in general, but also like our garden is a community garden, so it's open to everyone, and therefore it's in the middle of the park and anyone can go. So you have to do it with the idea that at least half of the produce will be harvested by someone else, which is also good in the sense of like we have our signs and say like you're welcome to look, but please don't harvest the crops. But nevertheless, people do it. But it's also nice in the sense of like when you're doing it a little bit for the community, and you know that half of it is going to go for someone. But then people might, I don't know, they might get on board with the idea, no? Like harvesting your strawberries or your zucchini. They might think of like joining one garden themselves. I don't know. So that's also like having, you cannot expect to feed yourself being part of such a community garden, at least like the one I am, but you're doing something for the neighborhood. And also we have a lot of pollinator friendly plants in there. So yeah.
I know it's hard to grow your own food. And we have farmers around Rotterdam who are excellent. And that's important too, to support them by buying their crops. But it's also very good for what you say, Edi, for the neighborhood and the conversations, the social contact, about sharing stories about growing crops and exchange seeds and recipes, and I think that's also very healthy for society in a crowded, stony city, polluted city as Rotterdam. And when we lose that, yeah, a city, in my opinion, gets poorer and poorer, and that's why we work as Groen 010, Green 010, in the Edible City Network project, to stay connected and to keep on sharing our stories and expertise on this.
It's also, I think, that people have to get more aware that green infrastructure in cities is part of climate adaptation. You know, that's another important part. It's not only the plants, but that we can grow in cities or the green infrastructure, but you know, with edible plants, you actually can combine all these aspects. And I think that's what people still have to understand, especially with politicians. I think they don't quite understand that there are several aspects to that, and this is a win-win-win situation if we can combine all these aspects. We can't do it everywhere and in any location, but I think it should become a big part of our green cities.
And I think if you cannot if you talk to politicians, maybe it's also an important aspect to mention that it can create new jobs and also new businesses that bring some money into the more neoliberal societies, which is also important for the society itself. But I think it can also be a factor that you could mention to the politicians or the people that make the choices in your government.
I think that in order to talk about real co-creation, any kind of hierarchy should be abolished. So you have to have a horizontal structure, like everyone's voice should be equally heard, and you should assure that you have participants from every possible background, representing as many different voices within the city as possible. And that's when you can actually talk about co-creation. Still, it's a very difficult process, of course, because it implies a lot of talking and a lot of listening. And unfortunately, it's a privilege for many people to participate in such processes because they might have a job that doesn't allow them to join these things, and they're often unpaid. And unfortunately, the least privileged ones are the ones for whom it's hardest to join these kind of things. So when creating and designing these processes, one should have this into account.
I think co-creation is very important because when we are not open to it, in Rotterdam, the initiatives stay the same, like small, and it's hard to survive. And the past years in this in the Edible City Network project, we looked for the connections harder. We had the opportunity to do this also. So the nature organization in Holland, they started in the area of Rotterdam a project, a pilot. It's called the Boerop. It's about connecting farmers with citizens, and it's so interesting in their ideas and language and expertise to have this connection and learn from each other and see where the connection is and start cooperating together. And it was very, Klara, you've been to the harvest dinner? That was part of it. And I organized it at my allotment community, with half of it people from the city and half of it the allotment gardeners. And we cooked with the crops from the gardens. And it started to be in such an interesting dialogue, but also that the people from the nature organization who made this possible, they had the conversation about it's so important to eat local food and to be aware what you eat, and because what you eat defines the landscape. If you only eat food from abroad, there will be no farmers and no nature anymore. If you eat from the local farmers, it defines the landscape around Rotterdam. So this co-creation projects, I think it's important. It's important to step out our own bubble and to go wider and to invest also wider.
I totally agree. And the dinner was amazing. It was really amazing. It was like in a, just for the other people, it was in a, I went to a community garden, which was growing crops for people in need. So for food, a food bank. So people in need get fresh food, because otherwise in the food bank there is only like canned food and packed food. And the garden itself was on an abandoned harbor that was filled with soil from a construction from the city. So it was like a very interesting project. And we got served a 5-6 course, almost 100% vegan dinner. The only thing, the cheese was like vegetarian, but it was also like coming from the neighborhood. So it was, and we were sat with other people together. So we didn't have our own table, but there were like these big tables, and like it was like we were forced to have a conversation because we were like sitting at the same table, and it was like a very, very nice experience. Yeah.
And from that, we joined. We had 4 spots where were dinners together with the nature organization. They funded it. And there was a dinner 2 weeks ago because they are supported by a fund. And they got for the coming years 8 million euros. So we continue. And at that dinner, there were all the participants who joined one of the projects. So there were farmers, but also people from the industries who now saw the success. And when people see the money flow, so they said, hey, who are you from Green 19? What are you doing? Because we're looking, we want to invest green. So the nature organization organized this dinner to celebrate and to meet the network. And we had to cook ourselves to in an hour. We had to find our own, to make our own dinner, and for 8 people, and everything was there. The local food from the farmers, and we had tables with 8 persons and cooked for them. But it was an interesting table because it was totally mixed, and businesses were done there. So that was. It started as a small co-creation, and it can grow into something really serious for the future.
Congratulations. This is a really amazing achievement. This is like actually upscaling, and this is what I also wanted to talk about. Like when you start something small, why is it important and how can you make it big? This is in small what upscaling means, and we talk a lot about upscaling throughout when we talk about edible city solutions. So this is a very nice example.
What we did the past years was the building the network is also an example of upscaling, because we all started as small entrepreneurs, individuals with all our own problems and struggles with the community gardens and the small projects. And the past years we worked at strengthening the network. And now we are really are seen as an organization on in the municipality. We are announced in new visions, and people come to us. So from just 4 entrepreneurs who saw the urgency to connect and to it's now a growing and flowing process. With we have the first 21 official members, but the network is, I think we have like 100 people now in the network who support each other and know each other.
I think, Klara, you should know Princess Gardens. I think that's a really good example because they've started on one side with guerrilla gardening in the beginning. They were illegal, more or less. And now I think they've got at least 2, but I'm not sure whether they've got 3 different locations where each location has a local community and they've got members. And so I think this is a real good example of how it can progress and go ahead and involve more people and more local communities.
For us, it's we make workshops for kids to educate them about the importance of local food, the importance of gardening first, and I tried to make workshops for sewing, for showing them the how what to say the energy, the collected leaves and parts of plants, how can use them for drawing and making how to say to like how to explain in English. Sorry, I have it French. So it's a workshop for kids to use the leaves and part of trees or part of plants to draw and make some like sculpture, something like that, and workshops for kids also to explain them the differences between fruit and legume. So we participate usually in the environmental workshops for 2 or 3 days, it's depending on the workshop's duration. So, and we have stands, so kids come and play and enjoy the workshops. We already have the workshops named Apprendre la botanique jouant in French, and in English it's play how to learn botanics by playing. Yeah. So we have this workshops, and last year I tried to connect and to contact many scholar schools and the how to say primary schools to manage for them like workshops in the schools, but we have many difficulties because it's not allowed by the Ministry of Education. So still we are working on that, how to introduce the environmental and botanics workshops to the curriculum and to the program of in the school, but we still working on that, and it's not something like very easy to do, because for them it's they will change all the program, and maybe how to say, many meetings with the Ministry of Education to changing the program, to make a new program for kids. Then maybe it will be agree or not to be introduced. So in most of schools, we're still working for that, but we are so far from the execution. So maybe I cannot say like 1 year or 2 years, but we still working on it, but not now.
Fingers crossed. I really hope that like these nice examples from Rotterdam, that's only like passing you or like making you the way to have like real from the governance, because it's like to start small and then to scale it up practically. So I really hope that it will happen. It's very, very important to happen.
Yeah, inshallah.
What we got from the past years, I like to share, is that we have the opinion that we are just started, but it gave us such a great opportunity to develop this all. And now we're stronger, and we think now we're grown up as a community and really can continue as a professional movement to make Rotterdam greener and healthier. And really also, we would love to stay connected in the network worldwide, because it was so inspiring to learn from each other and to meet each other. And it really strengthened our movement here in Rotterdam. Yeah, so we're really happy about it.
Well, I just wanted to say that I really do believe in the bottom-up approach, because it has worked with guerrilla gardening, for example. I mean, this is a perfect example how it has, one movement has spread around the world, and it has become legal from in the beginning when people were criminalized for growing plants and vegetables in beds on roads. So I think it is very important to get more people joining the movement and have lots of local examples. And I think if this movement is becoming bigger, then the politicians will have to listen. They won't have another opportunity.